Where'd you learn the martial arts?
Big surprise. Huge surprise.
I'm starting to get in a bad mood, you know? Maybe it's like a mood swing, my hormones, I don't know. You know, maybe it's my need to impose my will.
Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. Kicking it. I'm your host, Rob. My host will be joining me shortly. Is the real Dr. V from Wisconsin, the dairy doctor, as I like to call him or refer to him. Tonight's movie is going to be Taken with Liam Neeson from 2009, the U.S. release date, as we say. Action movie that we're going to cover. I don't know if, Doctor, you're listening out there. Can you hear okay?
Yes.
Nice.
I was just out walking around, and I noticed that there's really no one around. It's a ghost town out here.
Yeah, it makes you wonder where they were all taken. I mean, it's so easy to make fun of this movie, but initial thoughts of this movie, Doctor, give it to me.
When I first watched this movie, I had no idea what to expect. You know, Maggie Grace does a good job in here. Of course, no. I thought it was a pretty good movie. It's a little bit fictional, but it's also kind of serious. It's real because at that age, you know, most teenagers think, "Oh, parents, you don't know what you're talking about." And with all this crap going on, it is possible. There are people who get kidnapped. You know, I think it was bad parenting that they let them both go to, to France on their own, underage.
Hashtag rich white people's problems.
Pretty much. So, man, when I knew right away she's gonna that's why she's getting taken. I thought this was a fighting game movie. No.
That's Tekken, sir.
No, I thought it was done well, and it just shows the story's about a father who makes a mistake and decides, you know what, I'm gonna do what I can to get my baby back, and he does. He kicks ass. He's a one-man army.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, for me, my initial thoughts on this movie as we dive into it is that I'd seen Liam Neeson since I think Excalibur, like 80, 81, whenever that was, and as a kid, and so I've grown up seeing him and always thought he was decent, solid, but he never, in my watching of movies as a teenager, as a young man, as a middle-aged guy, he never really popped out to me. I mean, not in a bad way, not in a good way or anything, but he just didn't have that one thing that made me go, holy crap. And then when this movie came out, it was a lot like The Bourne Identity. I was like, wow, this is a great movie. You got to go see it. And I think it's got some fantastic stuff in there. I think it's one of the best action movies of the past 10, 15 years, easily. I have some negative thoughts about some of the way some of these things are portrayed. That being said, I think it's a very pro-family type film. It's very pro-father. And the thing that's about it that's great too is, we mentioned this before when we've talked about female actors getting older. Sometimes it's hard to find a good role that you can be in. And I think that in here, this kind of like jump-started a renaissance for Liam Neeson in his ability to get action films.
It redefined his career, man.
Absolutely.
He was known as Rob Roy before this.
Yeah.
Romance thing. And then he's like, all of a sudden he's like a one-man army. He's, dude, it's like, what the heck? He's like Commando almost.
Yeah, but there's definitely a couple things that pop out that, I noticed rewatching it today that, as we talk about, we'll mention. But let's go ahead and get started with it by saying that, like you said, it's a movie about father who has a particular set of skills, as he likes to say. It's a Luc Besson special, by the way, and I had watched the show on Netflix actually, and it's not bad. Whoever the guy is that plays this character on Netflix does a good job, and it's got Jennifer Beals in it from Flashdance. She plays in there, and she's just great to watch. It's not a bad show, and reminds me a lot of this. And this is what I like about Luc Besson. He's able to slap together something with characters with a certain kind of pacing. He's got his formula down, kind of like how Blumhouse coordinates people in horror films to do their own thing a little bit. I really enjoyed it, and he really hit the nail on the head with getting Neeson in here because Neeson, he's a big dude, 6'3", I'm guessing. He used to box a little bit as an amateur, I believe, Irishman, so you think tough guy. And here he's, I'm guessing, in his 50s, dyed hair and everything, but he still looks imposing physically the way he's shot, and he naturally is that way. He was a science teacher too by training at the beginning and did some other stuff, so he did not grow up, I would say, privileged from what I can gather. And in here, his character, and this is one of the strengths of the movies, echoes those same things about Neeson's background. He's a father that worked in the military, and of course he's divorced now, and he's struggling with it, and they make the thing about Maggie Grayson here, let's be honest, she's really, really cute, really, really pretty and beautiful, but they make her like she's 12 with like pigtails, running around like a goofy idiot. But of course, the mother's remarried to some rich dude that who could give her rat's ass about anything because of his money, and we see all this kind of going. So it's kind of annoying to see this. You got a guy that's a good father. He provided. He was in a very tough job, and it's they don't really explore all that. It just exists to serve the nature of the movie, which is fine. But Neeson does such a great job in here of kind of playing that, oh wow, I'm really, really hurt. My little girl's all grown up and now I can't see her. I've got to go rescue her. He really does a great job of it. What do you think?
I thought, well, that could irritate me too. Whenever I see a guy, a nice guy, this, and then his wife's like with some other guy who's like almost twice his age. Man, I guess maybe slightly older than him, but the guy that she's with is a total d-bag. He's a wimp. He's a simp. That's what he is. He doesn't. I think I'm not sure he's a lawyer wherever he is, but here this guy, at least it's obviously loves Liam Neeson because he's ex-CIA, and maybe they had a falling in because he was working all the time and she wanted him to be around. I don't know.
Well, she says that. She says, yeah, I was waiting for a call for 5 years. I'd go weeks at a time, wouldn't even get a knock on a door wondering if you're dead. It's like, you know what you signed up for, and I always hate when they throw that in there whining about what the guy does for a friggin' living. That's how he does it, good, bad, or otherwise. And that's one of the reasons why, even though I think Famke Janssen does a great job of communicating this, not in a bitchy way, but in a I'm over you, let's get through this with our daughter kind of bit, I think it's very realistic, and it almost is like a European look on American relationships, I think, but it's so true. The guy she remarried is a simp. He's just there for money. Provides them the airplane to go. He's buys the horse where he buys the karaoke machine. So it's just a different set of standards. But it doesn't do female actors any bit of good when they're being shoehorned into these kind of roles where they're spouting off this nonsense about, well, you're not good because you're not home. And it's like, shut your mouth. I'm making a damn living here in a high stressful job that you can't relate to. So no, I don't want to come home after killing and bad guys and talk about my day. I just want to watch my little girl sing karaoke and have a good time. But no, you got to go run off with this rich fool. And it's irritating. And that's really about the only negative for me, this movie. But the bad guys are pretty darn good, which we'll find out here in a minute. Yeah, and I agree with you, bad parroting. I mean, if she's 18, she's going to go. That's fine. But that's just not wise, obviously. But they're 18. Well, what can you do?
Was she 18? I thought she was 17, turning 18.
Well, to me, she's not a young teenage girl. She's a young woman, and she seems so naive. And there's the line that he has in there about where he actually gets mad at his ex-wife, and he's like, you live in your rich bubble, and you don't know what the real world's like, and all that too. And they basically guilt him and shame him into saying yes and signing paperwork to send her off. Because you're right, I think she is 17. That's why he has to sign the papers. And he has his rules for her, which of course she breaks and violates because every teenager is going to do it, male or female. And so part of this, you could say, it's kind of like a guilt-ridden thing. He has to unleash hell because he feels so bad that it's his fault that he allowed it to happen.
And then when she does get taken, he tells his wife, and she's like, "How could this happen?" I'm thinking, what? And I don't know. It's like, I'm not gonna hate on the wife too much. I'll just say this about the whole thing, with the whole situation with her divorcing a problem. I mean, I'm just gonna say it. It's like, you married the guy. Did you marry him because you had a kid, or did you marry him because you loved him, and then you realize, oh, I hate his job though more than I love him? That's what pisses me off when I see people do that stuff. But for this movie though, it had to happen this way to set up, otherwise he couldn't go after and rescue her. And the fact that it has a happy ending, 99 times out of 100, these stories do not have a happy ending, as we see with her friend. her friend was into a basically a brothel, drugged up on heroin and stuff. And she, he's trying to find his daughter, and he kills all the bad guys. Takes her friend to the hotel, tries to keep her alive, and she ends up dying. That is the reality of the stuff, and this is why I do not like social media for especially for anybody. As far as most of these people, these kids, even 20 years up or 25 to 20, 30, they don't realize when you take photos where you are or Snapchat all the time, people can find out where you are easily just by recognizing stuff. They put it, they put the pictures together, and they can get if you basically get your routine of where you are. Snapchat is horrible for this. Same with Instagram,
Yes.
And then on top of this, some people are anti-gun. Oh, we don't need guns. I'm thinking like Liam Neeson proved why you need guns in here. Because if that girl would have had a gun, she could have shot the guy. She said she hid under the bed, and it basically had no defense.
What's interesting too about this movie is, from 2000, let's say 2008, it may have been filmed, or even late 2007, let's say. But I think the American release date was January of 2009. So it's going. Spoiler alert, it's going to be in my top 10 2009 movies on Top 10 Tuesday that we do with Angleton from I Love Comics and Old Man
Definitely.
Comics. Yeah, and the thing about Paris is I've spent some time in Europe, and I've known some people in some areas personally, and I've traveled with some different groups of people over the years. Not a lot, I wouldn't say I know that, but I have a European significant other, let's just say, because I try not to get too personal in here, and so we always are talking these things, her and I, and like I said, when I went to Paris and all that, I was there pre 9/11, and everything's changed since 9/11, and that's a whole separate conversation about politics, whether you agree with things or not. But knowing the people that I did, who I stayed with when I was in Europe for a summer, I got a chance to hear a lot from locals about how things are in culture, and it's pretty interesting because one, the scene here where the two girls meet up with the really cute Frenchman who's just instantly punchable because he's a scumbag, he's trying to get in her pants, which is what guys are going to do. But we know as guys what's really going on. Of course, we know he's going to be involved because we see the spotters and stuff, and it pisses me off because the majority of people I see traveling that are independent in small groups are fairly worldly, and that they don't believe these things are going to happen. And it's like, they're like her, they're doughy eyed, they want to see the world, FOMO, fear of missing out, YOLO, you only live once, all these things. And it's really kind of disgusting to me, but that's part of being young. You're ignorant about what's going on. And I will tell you, when they flew into Charles de Gaulle, they meet this guy in a taxi, they get taken literally to a really nice place that they were staying, so they were spotted. And when you're out on your own like that in a foreign country, you have your radar that comes up, and anybody that says it doesn't, I don't know, maybe they live in their own bubbles, and we all do, but that bubble's definitely gotten a lot worse. And the people that I still know over in Europe today, we're talking about, saying Paris is basically no more. So it was really interesting because this movie, I think, does a great job of really showing a lot of Paris, how dense it is, how much of a cosmopolitan city it is, but with a really dark, seedy underside, and it seems really realistic. That's one of the positives about this movie. It does such a great job of that with all the construction, and there's tons of places that they're at. It's really nice, but it's not I would call it a love letter to Paris where you only see pretty things and no trash and everybody's in love and all that crap, because that's not. This movie's about women that are taken, to your point, get put in a white slavery, and these things definitely exist. So we know we got the seedy Frenchman in there. We know that some bad things are going to happen with it, but ultimately, I mean, Paris, you could argue, is just not a good city, and it's only gotten worse since this movie's come out. So this makes this movie really good.
The seedy Frenchman is a dirty frog, as you're saying.
Well, whenever I hear some of them talking like that, I just think of, like I say, some people that I've known. And, just because somebody speaks a different language or maybe doesn't speak English very well, it doesn't mean they're dumb. It doesn't mean they're stupid. Men are men, women are women. There's businesses, there's opportunity, and nothing's more valuable than fertility, which basically is a young woman when it comes to what's going on in Europe. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So, this movie definitely doesn't glamorize it, let's say.
And for anybody who has kids, boys or girls, because they'll take guys too,
Oh, sure.
So you should show your kid this, especially when they're like in their late teens, and you'll tell me, like, well, this is what could happen. This will happen if you decide, to think that you're invincible. I mean, you shouldn't scare the point where they're afraid they leave the house, but you should teach them how to take care of themselves.
Yep.
Maybe take defense classes with them, or show them how to use a firearm if they need to. Where to call. Have a protocol set up. What to do in case something happens. So they don't. I obviously when the first time happens, you're gonna freak out, but after a few minutes, you should be able to basically you're like, you know what, I've memorized this. I know what they need to do. But even then, you can be the most prepared person and still get this to happen to you. That's why I said it's always take this stuff seriously, And I know you're saying this is only a movie; it only happens in Hollywood. I'm like, it's happened in my city. Well, actually, not my city, but like in my county. You hear about it all the time in Chicago, in Milwaukee, all the time. Obviously we have the Amber Alert system going on for teens and stuff here, But other countries, I don't think they even have that. And chances are they don't even speak in English, I'm not saying all of Europe's bad. I'm just saying there's a lot of bad parts, and as being someone who's never going in there, you're not gonna be able to identify which the bad parts are, until you actually get in that situation.
Yeah, and I remember, traveling by trains or taxis or, private cars. The people on the streets know what's going on, and they let you know, hey, you want to avoid this and avoid that, and basically the media's not going to tell you that. And the thing about Paris that's interesting is that when you get on the train going from, say, Charles de Gaulle into downtown Paris, which is what you always see by the river and everything, is that there's a lot of slums bordering all the way around it, and the downtown part is the centralized part is what's beautiful. And when I was going, this is before, of course, Notre Dame was assaulted a year or so ago and burned down and everything. It's they were doing a lot of work on it, but even then I saw a lot of bums, saw a lot of vagrants, and it's interesting because that's what everyone would say. Oh yeah, Paris spends all their money making downtown look great because that's where all the international money comes into, but on the outskirts it's surrounded by dumps. And it's kind of like if you look at American cities, downtowns used to be really, really nice. Then people moved out to suburbs, and then depending on what you believe in terms of economic policy in states and counties, they became blighted. Like say Detroit or Baltimore is a good example, and other ones. So
Chicago too. Chicago, you look at that night by night. Oh, it looks beautiful, but then you actually get in there. There's certain parts. It's just like wow. It's like it looked nicer from outside, and you get in there, it's like this isn't what I expected.
That's true.
Milwaukee's never really updated anything since the 1800s. I'm pretty sure they have the same sewer system, everything.
Yeah, so I think the best scene in this movie actually is the scene that's early on here, and it's when the girls literally get taken, and it's the scene that everybody knows that ended up being on one of the trailers for it, where he's like, okay, look, this next part's very important. You're going to be taken. Leave the phone on. You got about 5-10 seconds, very important seconds. I want you to tell me what you see, here and this and that. And so she shouts out a couple things too. And I just think that's so awesome because here, what's great about it is you don't actually see her being taken. You hear it on the phone, and you're watching Liam Neeson's reaction to it, where call it overacting or not or what. I thought it's a fantastic scene, and he delivers the line everybody knows. I got a particular set of skills. I will find you and I will kill you. The guy's like, good luck. Oh, it's like that. That's when you get hard on, and you're like, man, this thing's on. I can't wait to see him kick some ass.
Well, yeah, he picks up his hand on the phone. He knows she's taken. He plays on the phone. He's like, he's just like, I don't know where you are or who you are, but I'll find you and I'll kill you. And again, yeah, and then the back a couple of days later, you're like, good luck. And it's like that is one of the best thing I know from this movie, other than him actually tracking down the people and all. But of course, people say this is too violent a movie because he uses the guns and actually shoots people.
Well, I thought the gunshots were done really well. Like they sound powerful. Like every time the shot was fired, whether it was Brian Mills is his character. If Brian was shooting or the bad guys, it made me kind of almost jump a little bit. It was that good sounding. It reminds me of what we talk about in Michael Mann movies.
And there actually were keeping track of how many bullets they're using per clip.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Luc Besson. Some details like that. And some of his films are definitely there. And Liam Neeson being older and bigger, they do a great job of showing him with this up close, martial arts. It's not, of course, JCVD type stuff. It's just the, infighting, really close stuff, and a lot of strikes. His striking game is strong striking game by Liam Neeson in here, by Mr. Brian Mills.
Oh, the hand-to-hand combat in this is great too. And then he even uses the gun to shooting the guy in the stomach. Kind of like it's just kind of where John Wick kind of got the kind of thing, same thing too. He's kind of gun fu.
Gun fu, yeah, exactly. And there's a thing to that. Yeah, so punchable Frenchman Peter, he's the guy that he gets tracked down, and it's kind of funny because there's a little fight scene, and then Brian Mills looks up and he's running off on this highway, and he chases after him, and Peter freaks out and he jumps off and lands on a truck that he'd aimed for and lands on the ground, looks up at him, and then a truck just rolls him over. But it's not out of nowhere. You see it in the background building up, and you're like, I thought that was kind of humorous actually for some reason, but but now he's really got to dig in because he can't sit there and torture him for information. He'll save that for somebody later because yes, you're going to get torture in here. And the thing about this movie is, as we think about Maggie Grace, I tried to clip as many scenes of her running, acting like she's like this, I don't know, doe that's just stillborn or something like that, all wobbly on her legs, running around and slipping. It's just so bad. And it's kind of funny, and I think that's unintentional. But Jean-Claude, who is this like older acquaintance who now has a desk job he meets with, and they talk about stuff. He goes, checks out some hookers there. He harasses one in a really white guy, old middle-aged way, so he could plant a bug on the guy that's the muscle and listens to stuff. So this is just kind of neat detective stuff before they find the safe house at this construction site. And, up to this point, You're like, is it an action movie? Is it a detective? It's got a good blend of both.
This was more Batman than any other Batman movies coming out so far. That's the way I look at it. This is Bruce Wayne going undercover as Masters of Malone and just like getting into the other world, Seriously, the detective skills on here. How many Batman movies have there been out, and how many have actually shown detective skills?
0.
Hardly any.
0.0.
Yes.
Yeah. So he finds out of this safe house, and he gets one of the girls, but his daughter's not there, and he goes to room. And this is one thing I love in detective international movies. It's like they do it in the Bourne movies a lot, where when you're trying to stay off the grid, you have connections that you just dial up and knock on a door, and they recognize you, and you can still get a place without necessarily getting traced. And I think that's awesome. So he hooks this girl up. They have some information exchange after a little bit, and of course he's acting like a father figure because he saved her, and we get to see the awesome lethality of one Brian Mills here. But then we know, watching the movie, that Jean-Claude he's on the take. We know he's not on the up and up. We know he's a bad dude. He's a Frenchman. He's an evil Frenchman, and therefore he's not intimidating. He's not clever. He's not witty. He's not whatever. But we see him because they fleshed this character out. Yeah, he's sloppy. He's got a desk job. He's got a cute wife.
He's nervous.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
he's nervous because he's sweating a little bit. Every time you see him, and it's like, this guy is hiding something, and Liam Neeson knows it, and it's just like he's Liam Neeson doing the black. Batman goes the back glare and just scares the crap out of punks. He's basically doing it to him, and he's just like so. And this seems to be true too of Starsky and Hutch when they introduce a guy, and the guy they always don't. He'd sweat a little bit. He's like, hold that, and then they let him go. Give him a little bit of a leash, let him go, and then he leads him to him.
Yep.
And it's the same thing. And I love that in stuff. The main guy, the hero, is intimidating. He's not just some just soy boy. He's like
competent.
He's masculine. Yeah, he's a man's man. This is Clint Eastwood stuff like here. It's like, you don't mess with him. You don't mess with Jim. You don't mess with Clint Eastwood. You don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't mess with Brian.
Yeah, so that's the whole thing, and what you're saying is absolutely true, because I think another great scene coming up. I could care less for car chases, honestly, for the most part, so I didn't really mention that. But there's a scene here where, because he's got Jean-Claude's business card, because he gave him to him, he knows Jean-Claude's address, he knows where he's at, he knows where he lives. He goes and he pretends he's Jean-Claude to this house where he got the information from the girl he saved. And it's pretty neat because they walk him, and it's a shithole place. Let's just say it. It's a dump, and of course it's got all the I think they were Bosnians, and they were saying, just because we're immigrants, you have no right to come in here. Albanian, excuse me. You have no reason to come in here, and
he had dinner with him, didn't he? Should
Kind
have
of,
been, yeah.
sort of. I joked when I was typing up here that he was having a coffee with him because he does. He's like, "Can I have some coffee?" And he's like, he goes to get a sugar. And the reason is he's looking at each one of their wrists for the tattoo that his daughter basically gave out as the clue, the half moon and the star. Um, so he's in there. So he knows these are the bad guys, but he doesn't know if they're the boss. But by answering all these questions, and it's a great scene, he's intimidating them all, basically acting like he's. Jean Claude saying, "Yeah, I'm going to raise rents. You know, things are hard." And it's great too because this is a great acting job. He's like, you know how much it costs to keep you guys under surveillance with the satellite up in there? For that, it's gone up 20%. My prices go up, they go up for you. And he's sitting there and he's drinking the little tiny little coffee cup, you know, with his little pinky out or whatever, and he's putting the sugar in it and he's talking to him, walking around, and he's sizing them up. And everybody's watching each other. No music, nothing fancy, but it's really cool. And when they kind of call him out and they escalate just a little bit, even though they go to agree with him, he sits there and it's just a wonderful line. And I tried to capture the still with the subtitle on. He's like, "Your arrogance offends me," and I'm like, I love that line. It's like, yeah, I know he's just gonna kick your ass. And of course, the one guy who's at the table who didn't really say too much was the guy that said, "Good luck." And he says, "You don't remember me. We spoke on the phone 2 days ago." And then it is on like Donkey Kong. They have the big shootout. You know, he's laying on the ground with a body on top of him. People walk in. All of a sudden, he sticks his arm up and shoots someone. I thought, that's friggin' cool, using the body as cover, but acting like you're dead. You don't see that enough. It's just a
Yep.
great scene all the way through. I'm like, this is awesome. What did you think?
Yeah, this is the movie that basically changed it as far as this. This is what you watched before John Wick came out. This is the movie you want to go watch theaters. Like I said, some people when this movie came out, I remember being in the news. People were kind of offended by it. It's like, oh, they don't this because well, Fox News was praising it, and where the other ones were kind of like, no more guns and blah blah blah. It's like this was the best movie you could watch in that year, to my honest opinion, because was we're more close to being home, as far as being real and stuff, and he still had a happy ending. He wasn't. Yes, his friend's daughter, she died.
Yeah, he discovers her
Or
and then he tortures the guy
yeah,
basically for
yeah,
the last bit. Yeah, you're
yeah.
absolutely right. Torture's become,
You know,
they just had torture
it's
in this in the other movie earlier, the James Bond movie.
but yeah. I mean, I enjoyed this movie. This you had the Jason Bournes coming out, you had the Mission Impossible. This just fell in right in line with them. This as being an awesome movie. Uh, and unlike the Jason Bournes or it's not saying well that I would say unlike the Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise, there's always some comedy in there. This was all serious. There was no comedy.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, the only thing people might have laughed at is like if because we're laughing because the bad guy gets shot. He thinks he's all cool and then gets shot. He's a punk. We're maybe laughing at that, but other than that, though, this is a serious tone throughout the whole movie. And don't get me wrong, it's not a drama. This is an action movie
Yes.
with a little bit of drama. And I don't really like to call it drama because drama is usually made up, or make believe, it's fake. This is a real life, situation. This could have been based on a whole entire movie, or based on an actual story. We don't know.
Well, to your
'Cause most
point
of these
about
are
the drama, there's a scene in here
yeah,
because the movie's about ending where, after he tortures a guy for information, he goes to see Jean Claude and he's having dinner, or Brian Mills is having dinner with Jean Claude's wife, who's this just really pleasant French woman, and she's older, she's beautiful, they've got a nice home, and so there's that tense dinner exchange, and finally Jean Claude pulls a gun on him, and the wife doesn't know what's going on, she's freaking out, and you're like, well, she's handling it a little bit, realistically and all that. But what's great about the scene is Brian Mills, he's not bullshitting around. He sits there and he shoots his wife, he gives her like a little flesh wound in the arm and says, next time, it'll be between the eyes if you don't tell me where it's at. And so the guy breaks down and says where it's going, and he ends up going to the place where they're having the auction for the young ladies. And of course, it's an elite kind of place, and he sees his daughter there, and there's a big shootout there. But yeah, I mean, just when you think it's funny, middle-aged man saves his daughter, and you think it's kind of cute, and you want to smile about it. But to your point, you're absolutely 100% right, Doctor. This movie's pretty serious from start to finish, even with the happy ending.
yep.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with you. I think it's a great movie. I think it's fantastic. It's exciting to watch. It's fun to watch. I don't think it's too dopey. My only final thoughts on it would be is
And
that I'm glad that they did make sequels, even if they didn't live up to this first one. But my God, this one is so watchable. It's such a fun film. What about you?
the second one, I was saying, out of the sequels, this will always be the best one. It's the first one. Um, the second one was okay. The third one was a little bit better than the second one. But yeah, I mean, remember, this is Liam Neeson. This guy, he's probably, and he's filming this. He's probably like in his 63, 64. So people are like, "Oh, he's too old to do. I can't do this stuff. He's too old to do stunts." I say, "Excuse me. What about Wesley Snipes? Wesley Snipes is younger than this guy, and you're saying that he can't be played? Look at Liam Neeson. A lot of people thought, well, this guy can't do an action movies. Oh, he's too old. I, 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 I direct your attention to Charles Bronson, Death Wish,
Oh yeah,
dude. Don't write off people just because they're an age. Don't be an ageist, man. Of course, other Hollywood, we want a younger guy so we could do 30 sequels. It's like a lot of us don't even want sequels because we like the movie as it is. And I've always said this: when you put a sequel and you think it's going to do well, it doesn't, because the first one has the magic. If you really like that movie, you put a sequel out, the sequel does not hold up. Um,
yeah. And he was in his mid 50s doing it. Like I say, I liked Darkman a lot. That was the one that stuck out to me in Excalibur. He was
oh,
a
dude,
side
yeah.
he was a side guy in some other movies in the 80s. Uh, The Bounty comes to mind too with Anthony Hopkins. Mel Gibson's a fantastic film also. But to me, when I look at this, I go, hey, mid 50s, you can still be relevant. You can still do stuff, not just as a guy, but I think women too. I mean, we were kind of bagging on the wife's role in the movie, not necessarily the performance by Famke Janssen, Miss On the Top, if you will. She does these roles actually very well, and she's been around for a while too. But yeah, this I think is a great example of a movie that if you just have a good character, story, eh, you don't have to have it all that. You can find people to fit it into something if you want. But if you got that character that you can latch onto and it can just be a little bit different, people get interested in things that are a little bit different. Because when's the last time you've seen a movie like this other than like a Charles Bronson? We covered The Mechanic. We'll be covering more Bronson. We've done some other stuff like that. But even with Chuck Norris that we've covered on Kicking It, when he's got older, we could tell that he went into a different range of his movies, and that's fine. But I gotta tell you, I'm really glad this movie came out. It really was, I think, a breath of fresh air, as they say. Fantastic, fantastic film. I think it's, like I say, one of the best films in the past 10 to 20 years. I'll give you the last word, sir, before we close up shop.
Last word. Watch this movie, man. If you don't watch this movie, say your general. I don't understand why you think that, but unfortunately, you're missing on a great movie.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
definitely watchable and
I
rewatchable.
mean, so many people base him off his performance from Rob Roy. Oh, I don't want to watch Liam Neeson. He sucked in Rob Roy. It's like, dude, don't be a movie snob. Actually, sit down and watch this. I've watched movies that I thought that were horrible and turned out to be great. I've
Yeah,
also watched movies I thought would be great and turned out to be horrible. It's the gamble. And guess what? It's free on Netflix. If you're already paying for the service, it only takes a little bit. You can watch 10, 15 minutes if you want to and decide, you know what, it's not for me. Turn it off. But yeah, definitely give this movie a chance. I would rate this about a 9 out of 10, either 9 or 8, right around there.
yeah, it's immediately in an A B plus A minus kind of range up there. I mean, I'd have to think about it, but yeah, and we'll talk about movies of 2009 on Top 10 Tuesday coming up. So, like I say, spoiler, it's in my top 10, but we'll see what Eglinton comes up with and what you come up with. Well, Doctor, thanks for popping in as usual. Thanks for everybody for listening. Stay extreme.
Toodles.